Okay, so we've talked about how it's really important to build rapport with the patients of the practice, make them feel like they are a part of the practice, that they're just not a number. We've talked about how important the name is and how it's a brand to that patient, very is similar to how that cow gets branded. Now let's talk about how to make the name basically easier to remember, because we've all been stuck in that situation where we're kind of half listening. Oh, hey, my name's Sean, and oh, my name's Frank, and then 2 seconds later you're like, oh man, what is this guy's name? And then you can't go back in and mess it up, or you can't say, hey, you, especially in a clinical setting. It just makes it really weird, and again, you're going to kill the that connection very quickly. So you don't want to do that. You want to build it for long term. So, really kind of like the easiest way to remember somebody's name is that when they say, oh, hi, my name's Jen, you stick your hand out. We're going to start talking about a little bit more of the body language and why it's really important. But you stick your hand out and you do it straight up and down, and I'll explain that in a second. And you say, oh, it's nice to meet you, Jen. You repeat it back to her when she says that. We're really glad that you're here today. Now, let me talk a little bit about the handshake before I move on. So the body language all kind of starts, I've said this over and over during this training, we're very primal beings. And what I mean by that is that during the first literally milliseconds of meeting somebody, your primal brain will decide, is this person a friend or is this person a foe? Essentially, will this person feed me to the wolves or will this person protect me from the wolves? So let's talk about that. So the handshake says a lot about the person. By going straight in, up and down, it's very kind of like non-threatening, and it's not dominant. So everybody's known the guy that kind of comes in for a handshake like this. The guy in Pawn Stars, the son, does it all the time. He goes in, and that's it's a really dominant handshake. The further down as you're coming in, handshake. I'm trying to get my camera angle right here. The further down your hand is, the more dominant of a person you naturally are. The more open it is, the more basically less dominant or more welcoming you are. So the best handshake I ever had was from a dermatologist, and he literally, I thought it was so weird when he did it, but then when I really thought about it, I was like, that's brilliant. He stuck his hand out straight up and down like this and said, it's nice to meet you. And then he let me come in and kind of adjust however I wanted to adjust from there. So the thing really is that if we're being really dominant with the patient, if we're kind of condescending to them, oh, hold on, I'm on the phone, hold on, I'll be right with you. Again, that could be a brand new patient. It could be somebody that's walking in from the business next door that was referred over to us. These are first impressions of that patient. We want to be as warm and welcoming as possible. And by being dominant, by going in, we may not even be thinking about doing that. Like I talked about earlier in the presentation, 57% of how we communicate is done via body language. 36 is done via tonality. This is how I say it is much different than this is how I say it. And only 7% of what we actually is verbal, of how we communicate is actually verbal. So again, the other thing that we have to realize too is that there's not really that many people out there that speak body language. So the more that you can come across and really speak body language, not only will you be able to kind of essentially for lack of better words, or really bluntly put, the more that you're going to kind of be able to get out of life. And in addition, the more welcoming and considerate you guys can be, because basically, again, because we're so primal, that brain is, during that first couple milliseconds, is registering, are you going to feed me to the wolves? Or are you going to protect me from the wolves? And then at the same time, the rest of the next couple minutes, basically it's running a database in your head of, what does this person remind me? Do I like this person? Do I not like this person? And then it's kind of like, after that first 5 minutes, is basically solidified. So just think of somebody you absolutely cannot stand. Think about how you met. Was that like that from the very beginning? Like, I don't really like this person. Or think about somebody you really like. Think about the very beginning. Was it like, oh, I really like this person. So again, we'll talk more about body language, but that simple handshake, we've talked about the name. This is kind of what we're on right now. The name's really important. It helps you build the rapport and throws you into the friend cycle. And again, any advantage that you can get is that you really want them feeling very warm, very welcoming, I've chosen the right dentist office for my treatment, etc. So by the time you actually come in and have that financial discussion, then they're a lot more likely to be able to say yes. And again, some of the stuff might sound like, well, gosh, Sean, like you're kind of playing with their subconscious, and you really are. But the same thing is we're doing it in a way that makes them feel very warm and welcoming. They need that treatment no matter what, or they want to get those veneers done or those clear liners or that implant. We just have to kind of urge them in the right way, in the right direction, to want to choose us for that. So let's talk about, again, we've talked about the name and how important it is, but immediately, right when they say, oh, hi, my name's Jen. Oh, hi, Jen. It's nice to meet you, because it sticks in your head a lot easier and you're saying it back to them. Secondly, one of the easiest, best things, probably one of the best tricks I can teach you, or whatever you want to call it, during this training, is how to remember the name. Again, hi, my name is Jen. Oh, hi, Jen. Nice to meet you. You repeat it back. And then as you say it in your head, after you say, hi, Jen, it's nice to meet you, you look at their face and you relate their face to something that you will absolutely remember. So, for example, the Jean story. I had a neighbor. I haven't seen her for 10 years, and I'll explain myself, but this is all I see when I think of Jean. And that might be a little crazy, but let me explain myself. So basically, I related Jean to Gene Simmons. So as I was looking at Jean's face, I saw that big kiss tongue, and all in the makeup and everything like that. And I said, Gene Simmons, Gene Simmons, Gene Simmons, Gene Simmons. Usually it takes about 3 times, but I'll say it probably like repeatedly in my head until I know that it's stuck. So, and it's crazy, like almost like a split screen. I can see Gene, my neighbor, I can see Gene Simmons, and every time I think about her, I think about Gene Simmons. And again, I'm not even a Kiss fan, but the point of the story is that I will never, ever, ever, ever forget Gene's name. Because every time I think of Gene, I think of Gene Simmons, and I'll always remember her name. Gene will always like me. And it's funny too, because have you ever actually try this more often and kind of repeat it at the end of a story where you haven't mentioned the name at all. Think about then remember their name and say it at the end of their name, like, oh, it was nice to meet you, Gene. A explosion goes off in their head because they're like, I don't even remember his name. I feel horrible, but he remembered mine. This guy's a good guy, or this gal's a good guy. This gal's a good gal. I'm telling you, it will change the way that you communicate with people. So simply, again, repeat their name back to you. Oh, it's nice to meet you, Gene. Oh, Gene Simmons, Gene Simmons, Gene Simmons, Gene Simmons. While looking at their face, so you're kind of like putting that into the file into your actual brain. The other thing that I want to talk about is, now this is a huge disclaimer that you have to be incredibly careful of how you're doing this, and a lot of times you kind of almost have to test how you're gonna do this. So what I'm saying is, and I'm gonna be really blunt here. As a civilization, we're so over-connected, but we're so over-connected via machine, essentially. And yes, it helps, like we talked about earlier, with the frequency of the brain, but we're a touch deprived, starved civilization, because we're so connected via everybody. And it's nice because things like, for example, Facebook, I keep Facebook very private, but I get to see my cousins that are in Virginia and Maryland and DC that I would never be able to see them. I'd never be able to see their kids besides maybe once every few years, if we actually even get the chance to be able to do that, but I get to see them grow up. So that's wonderful. But the thing is that as far as a civilization, we're literally, bluntly put, starved. So now again, disclaimer, I am by no means telling you to get yourself into trouble. I am not saying go give somebody a back rub. I'm not saying put your hand on a knee or a leg. I'm not telling you to do any of this stuff. What I am saying is that a simple touch on the shoulder, a simple touch on the forearm, a simple touch maybe on a finger, a simple touch will make an absolute explosion in that person's head. And again, we're trying to put ourselves in the friend zone so that when we talk about money, that it's a lot easier to talk about them because we're friends and people do business with people they like. They do business with friends. So, for example, if you walk into a room and you're like, oh, hi, it's nice to meet you, Jen. Or it's nice to, let's say Gene. That's the example I gave. It's nice to meet you, Gene. Gene Simmons, Gene Simmons, Gene Simmons, Gene Simmons, Gene Simmons, blah, whatever the case might be. And you shake their hand and you put your other hand either, again, talking about dominance, if you put your hand over it, everybody's seen, like the president, when he puts his hand, when he does either the touch on the shoulder, he does it underneath, he does it over, there are specific reasons that dude does that. And he doesn't do it on accident. It's not just something like, oh, he's a really friendly guy. He is making that connection with you. So the next time you think about voting, you think about that connection that they made with you. So for example, a simple touch. I'm not trying to get you in trouble, but a simple touch of, hey, it's nice to meet you, a hand on the shoulder. Hey, it's nice to meet you, a hand underneath. Hand over is a dominant thing. So you're basically dominating the person. Hand underneath is not dominant. And again, that communication can send you probably 20 minutes into the future of rapport simply just from that little touch. Or for example, do you have any questions, Gene? And then a small, maybe just a finger right here, a touch, 1 second, 2 seconds, done. That's it. Pull it back. Do you have any questions, Gene? No? Okay. All right. Wonderful. So we'll continue. Or, hey, Gene, I'll be right back. A simple touch on the shoulder. So again, the only disclaimer about this is because of the different nationalities within a practice, some nationalities cannot touch at all. They can't shake hands. They can't do anything. So you've got to be really, really cognizant of how that is. So a simple, again, a touch on the shoulder, if you kind of lean in, you just kind of test the waters. You kind of lean in. And if they pull back, that touch is out. Don't even think about it. Don't even try it. But if they're like, okay, they're not even thinking of anything, and they let you do that for that 2 seconds, then again, that explosion using their name, it's all, you are pre-programmed to like me, all right? And I'm just sharing the secrets with you, again, because they need that treatment. So this is, I think, my next part of it. All these things are, yes, they're building rapport. Yes, I'm playing with the subconscious. Yes, I'm making a pure connection with you. Yes, I'm pushing you into the friend zone. Yes, I'm getting you closer and closer to getting to say yes, even before I talk about the financials of the case. However, people have been doing business with friends for centuries. If they like you, they are much more likely to say yes. They are much more likely to be open to what you have to say. They are much more likely to listen to what your recommendations are and go forth with them. So are these somewhat of a kind of like playing with the mind a little bit? Yeah, but they're all pre-programmed things. I'm not telling you, I didn't create this stuff. It's just how we are as human beings. So again, making number 2, we're only second step into the 5 steps of treatment coordination, but number 2 is important. It is absolutely crucial. And if at the end of this they don't like you, they don't feel that they've made that connection with you, then there's a really good chance that they're either going to say, let me think about it, or let me talk to my wife, or whatever the case might be. And the thing that we have to remember too is that if we get that patient, I'm being really blunt, but if that patient gets up and walks out, there's the chance of having them continue that dentistry, the chance of having them remember whatever it is. Again, we talked about this earlier, 75% of what you talked about with that patient is going to be lost within a 24-hour period. So you really have to kind of do actually more work to be able to help them out. So that's really all we're trying to do is they need the treatment. Whatever's good for the patient, whatever's good for the patient is good for the production. Why feel bad about the collection? So why should they walked in, for example, with needing that crown on, number 12, And then, if they don't do this, fear of loss, it's going to go into a root canal. If they don't do this, we're going to have to do actually more, if you will, destruction to the tooth. We're going to have to hurt more of the sensitive tooth structure, to put it nicely. We're going to have to charge them even more money for that. We're going to have to exhaust that. So again, really what we're trying to do is we're trying to get them into a whole, okay, this is what you need done. This is what's going to happen if you don't do that. I've made that mental connection with you. And again, we'll talk about making it financially and mentally affordable, but then you're putting that ball back into their court and letting them make the decision, which is the real trick or the real key of how to do things. But again, I can't tell you how important the step number 2 is, because if you don't build that connection, if you don't build that rapport, you're going to find yourself at the end of it having to say, well, I don't know, I don't think, let me talk to my wife. And again, really, you're not doing them any favors by not getting them to do the comprehensive treatment today, simply because it's only going to get worse, and everybody knows about that.